What's golden, y'all? It's Brian back with the Blurting While Dead live stream slash podcast slash everything else. We're gonna start from the top because I didn't mean to gag myself. Wow. So this is the Blurting While Dead live stream. Um, we talk all things black nerd and all things black nerd adjacent. My black nerd aesthetic is comic books, wrestling, current events, politics, sci-fi, books, you name it. The only thing I'm not 100% into is the tabletop game scene, and that's probably going to change here relatively quick. So, tonight's edition, I had a entirely different show, and it kind of got preempted by ongoing shenanigans by our beloved autocrat is kind of what we're going to call it. And so I'm gonna opine a little bit about that, tell you about some stuff I got going on, and just kind of have a little bit of fun tonight. There wasn't a lot on the comic book scene that moved me much this week. I think we're kind of in that lull period because we just ended DCKO and we're trying to reestablish our universes. Haven't really seen anything from the Absolute universe. That was mind blowing. The new Wonder Woman was kind of dope. Having Wonder Woman and Absolute Wonder Woman as Zatanna kind of square off, and trying to reintroduce Superboy Prime into the status quo. Been a lot. Well, before we get, let's give yourselves a round of applause before we get too far into it. All right, thank you. So, and I've been my comic book output really has been online arguing with people about the Invincible universe, and really, because we ran into it with the boys, like when you had a bunch of new people come into the new boys universe, and the comic book universe is going to be different than the actual television universe. That's how it always runs. But the versus Superman, whenever you have the evil Superman archetypes, there's going to be the versus Superman argument, and back and forth with people online about can three Viltrumites, I think they had the meme was like Thrag, Omni-Man, and Conquest, could they like beat up Superman? And here's the thing, if you've read the comic books, the one thing that gives Superman his most power is the thing that the Viltrumites have a very difficult time enduring. And I'm trying not to get too spoilery with y'all, but it was an interesting thread of conversation. You can kind of tell who has only been introduced to the Absolute or the Invincible universe through the television show. And it's no knock against you, but understand when you start the comparisons to Superman, the people that have read the comic books are like, nah. And even Kirkman, I think, is kind of Kirkman's kind of come out and said, yeah, they're kind of a tier, but they're a couple tiers below. You're flying bricks like Superman and a couple of other of the heaviest hitters in the universe. The Invincible universe is its own kind of thing. And when we talk about comic book universes kind of versing against each other, I'm off my script already. When we talk about comic book universes kind of facing off against each other, the thing you got to take into consideration is you're going to have to be dealing with the physics of each respective universe, if that makes sense. And so the physics in the DC universe are different than the physics in the Marvel universe. We've seen this with the Marvel and DC crossover events, why the Flash's powers don't work the same way, and when he crosses over to the Marvel universe, and Green Lantern's powers don't work the same way, and how the Hulk's power or his power scale is kind of either raised or lowered depending on how we're framing it, depending on what universe he's in. And so again, invariably, we're talking about what they're doing in the Invincible universe. The comparisons to Superman are going to be obvious, but if you've read the comic books, you're going to know why I'm like, this is kind of a dumb comparison, considering what Superman is able to endure and what actually empowers him versus what actually harms a Viltrumite. So I have yet to see how they're going to play it on the show, because the show is a different universe. than the comic book one. And I think from a power scaling point, um, the Viltrumites on the show are a little bit more powerful than the stuff in the comic books. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, but yeah, normally we talk comic books, fatherhood, and nerd culture, but tonight we're gonna zoom out a little bit because the world is kind of weird right now. Like I said, I had a completely different show in mind, but we got preempted a little bit by shenanigans, by our despot in chief. And so we got to chop it up a little bit about the shenanigans, the geopolitical shenanigans or whatnot. All right, looks like we got a comment here. Hello. Hey, Bonnie, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so we're gonna get into it a little bit. I ranted a little bit. I did spend a long time last week kind of talking about ADHD things, and if that's a feature you guys want me to talk about, because I have adult ADHD. I had it since I was a little kid. I've had adult ADHD since I was a child. No, I got diagnosed as a kid apparently, and nobody ever really told me. And I found out once I got diagnosed as an adult. And post ADHD diagnosis, the things I've been able to accomplish in my life, um, basically getting to the top, meeting all my goals, my career goals and aspirations by the time I was like 34. Um, Being director of my own residential youth program, um, and then starting my own business. And that's kind of the pathway that I've gone on. And so, if you're interested in uh, how are you doing tonight? We're doing good. Good. I'm glad you're doing well. And join us. If you want to jump in, go ahead and jump in. I try to keep the comments coming on the threads and whatnot. And so I'm just kind of warming up and getting ready to jump into the body of the show. So sit back and relax. Thanks for joining. So have you needed medications for your ADHD? So with my ADHD, when I got diagnosed, I went to University Hospital, and I was meeting. At the time, I didn't know. I thought but they were in a psych. They were a psych resident, and the psych resident did the whole assessment and basically told me that yeah, you've been diagnosed with ADHD, and so the way that she wanted to approach it was start with a medication regimen. And so she started writing up the orders and everything, and her attending kind of interfered and decided that I was drug seeking. And so the medication they initially put me on was were like tranquilizers or some kind of uh, super sedative kind of thing. Um, and that was the first battery they put me on. And what I was experiencing was I was in a job that was literally almost impossible to do, even for a person that didn't have any kind of neurodivergence. It was an impossible job to do, and I didn't know it at the time. But I was shotgunning like any kind of caffeine drink. I've gone through every single caffeine drink I could. I was drinking them back to back, just so that I could stay focused. And I was basically self-medicating with caffeine. Um, and they put me on they put me on these tranquilizers or whatnot, and I actually had to go to court for one of my families. And we had worked through the entire plan and everything, and the medication they put me on basically zombied me out, and I felt like I was in an outer body experience with my own body. And so, long story short, I talked to my mom about what happened, and she's a nurse practitioner, and she kind of said, "Yeah, the medications they put you on were tranquilizers." And then she used some of her resources to identify um, a nurse practitioner who worked with adult ADHD. And so, long story short, yes, I got on medication after my first doctor's visit. I had to find another provider, and I got on medication. They started me out on Strattera, and I was looking for this magic pill. Like, Strattera was probably working, but I didn't give it enough time. And so Strattera, and then Vyvanse with the Adderall, kind of supplement during the day, as the Vyvanse wore off. And one of the one of the jokes I found out is um, a problem as families with that, and can I do without medication? Yeah, I struggled with it because I ramped up my dosage way too fast because I was expecting a miracle as opposed to kind of slowly getting the medication on board and learning how to adjust my life. And so I was expecting way too much, and I was on way too high of a dose of Vyvanse. And the way that they describe Vyvanse is the medication you take for ADHD and discover that you have autism. That's kind of how it worked, because it zombied me out, turned me into a different person. And so I was did the Vyvanse thing for a while. It did help my career, but it wrecked my interpersonal world. And so I had to make a decision about whether I was going to stay on the Vyvanse. And so I came off of it with the doctor. It's kind of help and whatnot. And I was going without medication for a while. I was doing, I think it was methylfolate, and that was the only thing I was taking because they found out I had some kind of deficiency processing folic acid or whatnot. And so that was something I was taking, a supplement I was taking that helped with the ADHD to a degree, doing fish oil supplements that helped. And I was off medication for a while, for almost, I want to say almost 11 years. Um, and I actually got back on, and we tried Wellbutrin, and that was like the thing that I had been missing was Wellbutrin, because I think it does something with your dopamine or whatnot, and that helped me out. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm on right now is Wellbutrin, and think Wafacine. And so those two things have really helped me out. Yeah, it can be very difficult on your interpersonal relationships. And here's the thing. Um, the thing that almost wrecked my marriage with my ADHD was actually going on medication, because the spontaneous, rambling, hyper creative person that I was, when I got on Vyvanse, that person went away, and I was like this really taciturn. Uh, People thought I was angry all the time, and I was just flat affect all the time. And so the thing that drew my wife to me was my personality and my over the top, my scatterbrainness sometimes, and things like that. And actually, that was part of the reason that got me off of stimulants and got me off the ADHD stimulants in the first place. And so that's where I came off of it. Oh, we got a lot of comments here. Um, Bro, I think I have ADHD, but I don't want to go to my doctors. My parents will shrug it off as being a weak ass, which is something I can take and won't need a prescription. Here's the thing. Depending on where you at, um, I do think that you should follow up with a doctor, so at least you have a game plan, because it's not always stimulants, it's not always medication immediately. There's lots of cognitive behavioral stuff that you can do, and lots of other kinds of therapies that you can go through to help you manage your symptoms. And then, like medication, you don't have to get completely medicated out like they used to do back in the days when you came out with ADHD diagnosis, where they just hit you over the head with a medication hammer. There's so many different ways that they can address it, that some of them require light medication and some therapy, others are strictly therapy, some are even supplement based. But I would go to the doctor so that you at least have a know what you're working with. Okay. And so um and it's not weakness. Weakness is actually knowing that you need help and not pursuing it, and trying to gut through something that you actually need help with. To me, and from my experience, that's where the weakness comes in. And so don't ever feel weak about getting the help you need to be able to function and live the life that you want to live. Um, that's a piece of advice I can give you, because I actually went through that. And one of the things about ADHD in the 90s, and this is why it was so long for me to get diagnosed as an adult, was I was diagnosed as a little kid, and my mom did not disclose my diagnosis to my school, because for a little black kid in the 90s, 80s and 90s, an ADHD diagnosis instantly meant remedial classes. And she knew it. She was a school nurse. She had seen it happen a couple of times. And it wasn't like that for every other demographic group. And so I was in the gifted programs and all that other stuff. And me getting dropped into those courses would have taken me off the college track. And so I was able to gut it out. I was able to gut it out through school. I didn't quite know, like, I knew my brain functioned differently. It was something that she always knew. But I think at some point she thought she had communicated it to me, but she never had. But yeah, man, don't I would pursue some kind of medical intervention, at least, so that you can get a professional to sign off on it, and then you can figure out a battery of treatment. It doesn't have to be medication. uh, but don't avoid getting help because you're worried about how other people are going to perceive you or frame you. It's your life, and the outcomes tied to your life are your own. I would not let somebody else's because I grew up with it. Like even in my family, um, um, ADHD was kind of viewed as a cop out or an excuse. And okay, I still have what I need. I still have my needs, and I still have to be able to execute and stuff. So don't feel like don't carry their judgments into it. You got to do what's right for you. Regarding you become a shadow of your former self. um and that's kind of what happened with that's what happened when I was on too high of a dose of medication. I was on the wrong medication, and one of the things about getting medicated when you're neurodivergent is they try out different combinations. So the first thing you try, or the second thing you try, or the third thing you try is not going to be the thing that's the formulation for you. You have to try different things. And it's kind of a trial and error thing. And I was so obsessed with climbing this career ladder that I latched on to the Vyvanse and wasn't open, amenable to anything else for a long time. And so that was a trap I set myself up for. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Here's the thing, bro. So, yeah, and it's not really this kind of stream, bro. And if you're looking for the scripture or the message in this one, you're not going to get it. If you're looking for somebody talking about their life experience and ADHD and comic books and all other stuff, this is the place for it. I believe in Jesus. I believe in Jesus. I also believe in having a heart for those that need a better understanding for care and love. And I take to Jesus a better version of myself. And if that's, for you, that's great. I think everybody's path is different, and whatever their North Star is or their guiding light, um, as long as it makes them happy and they're not harming other people, um, I want them to chase whatever they need to live a life that feels fulfilling. I think a lot of times people live these lives of desperation where they're empty and whatnot, because they never pursue the thing that actually makes them happy. And for some people, being immersed in their faith is the thing that gives them life and hope and energy. For other people, it's a prison. And so I think it's finding what makes sense for you and progressing in your own way. All right. Do you follow him? Eh? Um, Hope you're doing well. Hey, thanks. I hope you're doing well too. You know, what are the differences before and after the medication? So I could speak. I could. Okay, so Vyvanse. Now I was on Strattera first, and I did see it wasn't as hard for me to focus and shift attention, right? And the need and the urge to drink energy drinks and caffeine kind of faded away when I got on Strattera. The side effects with Strattera for me specifically was um it wasn't insomnia, but I was going to bed at a regular time, but I was like getting 5 hours of sleep and being alert the entire day and just needing 5 hours of sleep, and that's all I needed. And that was not normal for me. I'm normally 7 or 8 hours. And so that was my first red flag. Um, but when I went over to Vyvanse, it was um, basically imagine you have a radio that's playing in your brain and just switching channels, or television that's constantly switching channels. And there's all kinds of static and noise. Um, Vyvanse was the first time where all that noise and all the other thoughts that were bouncing around in my head, they went silent for a while. And I was able to focus on stuff. And that was the difference. But I didn't see a problem as much, but it was my wife that said it kind of zombied me out and and gave me a flat affect. She thought I was angry all the time when I wasn't. And so, that's what being on too high of a dosage of stimulants did to me was it made me feel angry. And hindsight being 2020, I probably should have just stopped at because they did 3 different iterations of it. I should have stopped midway and checked in with my wife and say, how's my temperament doing and stuff like that. That was a communication piece. That was a fumble on my part. That was something I need to own. But yeah, the difference before and after is 100% focus and not feeling the rabbit in my brain forcing me to shift from task to task to task to task. Um, and so that's why, uh, they have me on Wellbutrin right now, which I think is supposed to be an antidepressant, but they use it for ADHD and stuff. Um, I can complete tasks without shifting to something else before, without shifting to something else, without feeling the urge to jump to something else, if that makes sense. It dials back my impulses. And so when my medication starts wearing off in the evening, I start getting a little bit more hyperactive. A lot of my ADHD is inattentive type with a little bit of hyperactivity, but as my medication wears off during the day, I start getting a lot more hyperactive. And back to the switching subject super fast and things along those lines. Um, Way I describe it is not being able to think in a straight line. So going from not being able to think in a straight line to thinking in a straight line is the biggest difference. But everybody's body composition is different, and medications are going to affect you differently. And that's why that's why having a physician and a medical professional kind of monitoring, and having another, maybe having a therapist or a treatment team alongside you, um, it allows you to test out this medication, see if this makes sense for you, for the outcomes you need. The biggest thing is, if you're on the wrong dose, you're going to know. Either it's going to come out in the way that you interact with other people, you're going to feel ill effects, um, and that's a sign that you're not on the right mix. And for some people it's not medication. Some people, there's some cognitive stuff. For some people it's supplements. So like I said, you talk to your medical professional and finds out. But for me, the difference is a night and day kind of difference. When I'm not on 88, when I'm not on medication, specifically on weekends, I used to take weekends off from my stimulants for ADHD, and whew, um it was like every thought, impulse, want, need, everything just flooded my brain at the same time. Um, and I was just all over the place. It was like I was on too much caffeine. So it was kind of a weird rebound effect. So, like I said, I really, really hope that, um, if I can encourage you to do anything, I strongly encourage you to go pursue some kind of help with it. It doesn't have to be medication, y'all. Just, something to manage it so that it makes your life livable. But sometimes if your life is perfectly fine, like for a long time when I was working front lines and group homes and stuff, it actually suited my ADHD, because I couldn't focus on any one thing too long, because I had to shift my focus all the time, because that's how I monitored the kids I was responsible caring for. And so being able to task switch fast and shift from priority to priority to priority to priority, and deal with this crisis over here and this crisis over here and this crisis up there and stuff like that. Um, it was a benefit to a degree. Not being medicated. Now, being medicated, there are some things that I probably could have done a lot better, but it actually suited that lifestyle, suited my ADHD, because I could go to the gym first thing in the morning, work out, and get all the hyperactivity stuff, and then I come to the group home, get the kids checked in from school, do afternoon homework stuff, and then take them up to the gym and just run with them. Football, basketball. We had a racquetball court, and I could just go all out and get all that hyperactivity out of me, and then wake up first thing in the morning again and hit the gym for another couple of hours, and then go pick the kids up or go to work and take the kids out and do other stuff. So it worked with my symptoms. As I got into a more traditional office job, it absolutely did not. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for opening up to this young person. Yes, you should see a physician. I wish my parents would have taken it a step earlier with me. I think here's the thing, and this is something that I'm adopted, so it's not always a clean translation, but a lot of times if you have ADHD, there's a good chance that one of your parents have ADHD, and they are projecting their bias upon you, if that makes sense, and how they feel about their neurodivergence on you. They don't want to acknowledge it because it acknowledges something about them that they may or may not want to acknowledge. But if you're getting pressure from your parents and saying, "Hey, you know you're soft" and all this other stuff, a lot of times it's them reflecting it upon you and how they feel about an ADHD diagnosis. That doesn't have to be your feeling about an ADHD diagnosis. So, like I said, I encourage you to go make sure that you follow up on it, because it could save your life. Depending on your age, it can save your life and your sanity. You always want to know what's going on with your body and your brain. You always want to have at least a grasp of it. You don't want to be encountering life without knowing and having some kind of way to navigate through terrain. Because there are days where I'm like, I'm out of sorts, or something's going on in my brain, and I can quickly kind of deduct or deduce, like, okay, um, you may have reached some level of burnout because you were hyper focused for these last couple of days on this thing, and so your brain needs a rest. And so being a cognizant and a knowledgeable about having ADHD allows me to do that. I couldn't do that if I never had the diagnosis. So at least I know how to regulate myself a little bit better. You know, again, people will tell you, "Oh, yeah, it's a cop out" and all this other stuff. And like I said, if you have ADHD, there's a good chance your parents may have it, and they are just projecting their insecurities about neurodivergence on you. Don't let them do that. um, go get treatment for your own thing. It doesn't always have to be medication. Okay. But at least have a working knowledge of what's going on up there. And yeah, I'm always down to share my story. All you guys gotta do is ask. Thanks for tuning in though. If you got any more questions, drop them in the chat. I'll discuss them. Um, So quick pivot, and if you want to talk more about the ADHD thing, jump in there and drop a comment, and I'll try to answer it on the stream. But I do want to talk about that transition from childhood to adulthood, and I think we don't spend enough time talking about being a kid and losing that sense of wonder about the world. And I've talked about it before. When I was a kid, man. Let me know when you're ready to talk about comics again. This is a good subject though. Oh yeah, I'm about to go into it here a little bit. I'm gonna be talking about something that's comic book adjacent. So if you want to stick around, that's cool. When I was a kid, and I talked about this summer, like this is when I first started this live stream. I grew up in the I was born in '79. I grew up in the '80s and '90s. And in the '80s, like ninjas were like a big deal. Like ninjas were like huge. You can go into the video store and they have an entire section full of movies about ninjas. Like they were prevalent, they were real, they were pop culture and everything. And growing up, we used to watch ninja movies all the time. Like we would go to Blockbuster, date myself, we go to Blockbuster and find whatever was out there, like Ninja Domination or American Ninja, and we watch them. And we actually at the 99-cent store, they used to sell like throwing stars, which it's kind of a weird thing to sell to children. Medical uh metal shrinkens where you could just throw them and they stick in the wall and stuff, but they would sell them to us. And so we would get all ninja'd up and everything. And I was a nerd, so I was in Cub Scouts. And so one day, Cub Scout master brings in a guy and he helps out with the troop or whatnot. And he sits us down. And I was used to the gang talk. I came up crack era, post crack era, while the drug wars were going on. And so we were used to the gang talk and the drug talk and what to do in a drive-by and all kinds of other stuff. He pulls us up and sits us down, and it's really kind of this somber, serious conversation. And um, he's like, I need to talk to you guys about something. And it's really serious. And so we're like, all right, cool. Now I'm about 8, 9 years old and talk to you guys about something really serious. And I'm like, all right, cool, cool. And so he starts talking. He's like, I'm seeing lots of stuff on television about ninjas. I'm like, ninjas? Wow. Okay. So we're talking about ninjas. Now I'm invested, right? And so he's like, yeah, there's lots of television shows and stuff about ninjas. And I'm here to tell you that ninjas aren't the good guys. They're bad guys. And they hurt kids and they kill people. And ninjas are really bad. This ninja life is nothing to play with. And so I'm just here to let you know that the ninja, I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing in my adult way, but the ninja propaganda is real. Don't fall for the ninja agenda. And my little 8, 9 year old brain was churning it. And I'm like, the message I was supposed to take was, man, ninjas are really bad and I need to avoid them at all costs. And my brain was like, ninjas are real? Like, this is a game changer for me. Like, there are ninja villages out there that I can go join, and I can join a ninja clan. And instantly, 8 years old, I made a career decision. I was going to join a ninja clan when I got older. Like, that was it. And I know the intention was don't fall for it. Um, but he validated all these things I had in my brain about ninjas being real. I'm like, nope, that's it. That cuts it. I am joining a ninja village, and that's it. I'm going to join a ninja gang, and that's going to be my life. That's going to be my career option as an adult. And so it was really dispiriting to come up and grow up and realize there were no ninja gangs out there. And there wasn't this magical, mystical world of ninjas where they're teaching you the killing arts and doing high stakes missions and all the other stuff. And I need you to understand like how ubiquitous ninjas were. Like, I grew up watching G.I. Joe, bro. The cartoon version of G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes didn't do a damn thing. Like, he maybe had 1 or 2 episodes where he did actually something. But everybody's favorite G.I. Joe when I was a kid was Snake Eyes. He didn't do anything. And I was one of the only kids that actually read the G.I. Joe comic book, where Snake Eyes was super active in the G.I. Joe comic book. In the Marvel continuity, bro was super active. In the show, he didn't do anything. In the comic book, he was catching bodies. He was like one of the main POV characters in the comic book or whatnot. There's a whole storyline between the Baroness and him, and why he was disfigured and why he had to wear the mask and everything. But on the show, he didn't do anything. All he had to do was stand there, look cool, and we realized he was a ninja. And Storm Shadow was the boy. Even though Storm Shadow was a villain, he had a strong fan base in the hood. And so ninjas were really ubiquitous. And so the transition from adulthood to childhood was realizing that, ninjas don't exist. And I think one of the shames is as you transition from adulthood to childhood, nobody prepares you for the imaginary worlds that you thought existed and how they just kind of collapse upon each other. I think that's why I'm so invested in comic books, because it allows me to hold on to some of those imaginary worlds that allowed me to escape when I was little, especially some darker stuff. Darker times allow me to escape. Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack is still one of my favorite shows, bro. Like when they released the final season of Samurai Jack, we were locked in. The whole family was locked in. Because I'm like, we got to see how this ends. Just like with Primal. The last season of Primal was amazing. It just stopped. It just went off. But the final season of Primal was phenomenal. And Samurai Jack was kind of in that same vein. Long Dark Survivor. Oh yeah, I know those. You just have to stand there and they throw a metal javelin at your feet. And yeah, they would sell those to kids. They used to sell them up at the Kmart up on the corner. But yeah, I used to think, like I said, I had an entire different perspective of what danger was. I mean, I grew up where gangs and drugs and all the other stuff, but I also thought there would be more ninjas. And I thought acid rain would be a much bigger deal than it really is. Like, I thought that was like a constant threat of ninjas, acid rain, and quicksand. Those are the things I thought were threats when I was little, aside from, gangs and drive-bys and guns and stuff, other stuff that was happening concurrently to me growing up. I was also worried about, I wasn't necessarily worried about ninjas because I wanted to join a ninja gang, but acid rain, and I thought that quicksand was a much bigger threat than it really is. And I think losing that sense of wonder, that Johnny Quest sense of wonder, where in Johnny Quest, quicksand was killing folks. Like, you watch old school episodes of Johnny Quest and Thunder the Barbarian and DuckTales and all the other stuff. Quicksand was jamming people up, bro. People were losing, like it was killing thousands of people a year in those cartoon verses. I cried so hard. I love Primal. Primal was amazing. And the Primal's one of those shows that actually got better every season. Not a lot of shows can say that. But the subsequent seasons of Primal, it got better and better, and it ended on a high note. Now, I really hope that this season of Primal is kind of a stake in the ground in the end of Fang and Spear's journey, and we start with new POV characters if we come back for another season of Primal. Because I did like the anthology episode they did where it was the British guys living in the mansion being hunted by that wild man and the serial killer. That was dope. And I would like to see more episodes of something along those lines where it's kind of an anthology series. But I think we need to have it into Fang and Spear's journey because it ended up on a really, really high note compared to where the last season ended, where it was like kind of bleak and depressing. And this first one really started out as a series of gut punches. That's cute. I'm a kid from the 70s, so freaked out by the bomb we saw every day. We were going to have a nuclear war. Yeah, the atom bomb the day after. What was that made for TV movie? I was a little bit too young to understand what it was, but it was like the what happens when they drop the atom bomb on us, and it was like a made for TV movie. For those that don't know, growing up, they used to have movies that would last a week. And it was like you tune in every night to see the next part of that movie. It was a made for television movie, and I think they made a made for television movie about the nuclear bomb. And now we're living it, which is really kind of an interesting place to be in 2026. We're kind of living what the pervasive fear of what nuclear annihilation is going to be like. But back then they had a show where they would just show the day after and what happened after they dropped the nuke on everybody. And yeah, and if you missed the made for TV movie, you just missed it. Like I remember when what was it? What was that show? It was Stephen King, The Stand, because I read The Stand. They did the TV show for The Stand, and at the time, my cousin was the only one. My cousin was the one who was all the way into Stephen King. I hadn't reached that point yet. I wasn't a fan of Stephen King, but he was when that dropped, and so he was hyped about that terrible movie. You know, but The Stand was kind of one of those made for TV miniseries. But there's a couple of others, like a Jackson's American Story, that was a made for TV movie. The Temptations, that was one of those made where you had to tune in every single night to catch the story. There was no TiVo, there was nothing for you. If you missed it, that was it. You had to wait till next season until they did it, or they may do it on a Sunday or something randomly. That was it. The reason why I love The Walking Dead and end of day scenarios. Yeah, I was fascinated, and I think there are different types of nerds, and there's post-apocalyptic nerds who are super into like the zombie, end of the world, Mad Max, kind of apocalypse thing. I'm fascinated by like the robot Terminator apocalypse kind of thing. I think every nerd has their favorite apocalypse setting for stories. Um, I was kind of partial to the Terminator apocalypse, and but yeah, the zombie end of days, kind of apocalypse. I actually read the Walking Dead comic books, and wow, that was a journey. um, I was depressed by The Walking Dead when people didn't even know what it was. Um, and they changed some elements of it. I think it actually made the show a little bit stronger. But for me, I watched and then like I just kind of fell out of watching The Walking Dead for a while. Um, and it didn't have anything to do with Glenn. I knew Glenn was going to die. I knew he was going to eat it. Mad Max Beyond was a Beyond Thunderdome with Tina Turner. My mom used to love that movie. I didn't know my mom was actually kind of a nerd. She was into more like detective books and whatnot, but she liked her action movies and she loved that was it Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And the Terminator, yeah, it could happen. I mean, like we're kind of set dressing for it. That's why I'm not freaking out about AI, man. I mean, something's gonna get us. Human beings are clumsy. We're clumsy, um, and we play around with things that will annihilate us all the time. And so, right when AI becomes a real threat, then we'll start screwing around and create something else that's even worse. and then that will replace it. It'll be our new fascination with AI. Um, you know, but I think every nerd has their end of days kind of thing. It gets problematic when you become like a billionaire nerd, and then that becomes your fixation. Like you become like an Elon Musk, where you are so fixated with the end of days apocalypse. And it's not just Elon. I don't know if there's a television show, and I can't quite name it, but it was showing how a lot of these tech billionaires, they have these conferences where they get together, and you would think they'd be talking about how to improve the world or how to help people and stuff, and mostly it's them exchanging notes about their doomsday bunkers and how they're going to subjugate the rest of us and control the rest of the population when the deal goes down. That's what the entire Cybertruck thing was about, right? It was like an end of days kind of vision of, can this thing drive through the zombie apocalypse? Like seriously, that was kind of his line of thinking. But the billionaire tech bro nerds who have the doomsday kind of fantasies, those are the scary ones that you have to watch. Like I said, they had a big conversation. They had these big, huge conferences about how they are going to establish a fiefdom in the post-apocalypse. And the crazy part is some of them even have it planned out where they're going to have the military, like they've hired special forces guys. When the deal goes down, they're going to come to them, and in exchange for protecting their families, they are going to provide security to these millionaires in their underground bunkers. And you could tell people who've never been in a fight before and never really had to deal with any kind of street shit because here's the thing. So you hire Mr. Special Forces, you're a billionaire lunatic tech guy, and you have your doomsday bunker and the deal goes down. You bring in your Mr. Delta Forces, Special Forces. One thing, a lot of the Special Forces operators, they have a level of psychopathy that they're like sociopathy that they're working off. They're not always the nicest people in real life, because there's certain disconnects you have to be able to do to be successful in that career. So they're going to bring this person in. They're going to move into the bunker, and this person is going to protect billionaire from all the other rest of us. And my question is, what's going to protect billionaire from special forces person when they decide, I don't listen to you anymore, and we're all locked in here, and there's really nothing you can do. You can't whoop me, you can't beat me, and really it's either you give up all your resources and put me in charge, or it's over for you. I don't think that they thought that through, but they have these kind of high level conversations and don't really understand human nature. It's really interesting. How many calls last year? COVID. We all just seem bound and determined to destroy ourselves. I think that's the folly of human nature. I think Kurt Vonnegut has mentioned it. Basically said we're all here to fart around. You know, and I think the best thing we can do is maximize the time you have and enjoy, and live the life on the terms that you want to live it. You can't worry about all this doomsday stuff and stuff like that because it's out of your control or whatnot, but live the life that you want to live, and enjoy it. I wonder if it's true that Oprah and Rosie McDonald own bunkers on islands. I mean, you look at all these people, $1 billion. They're getting ready for something because, and so now I'm about to get into this. Is way off my outline for today, but I'm gonna run this down to you. And you guys can 100%. You are allowed to fact check me on this one. Okay, so buckle in. So that cabal of millionaires, that PayPal mafia, Peter Thiel, by extension, Elon Musk and all those other guys, the guys that own Stripe and Airbnb and all those other major corporations or whatnot that are the tech billionaires right now. A lot of them subscribe to a guy named Curtis Yarvin. And you could, like I said, Google me on this one, y'all. I'm not BSing on this one. Curtis Yarvin, they call it dark enlightenment. And Curtis Yarvin is he's anti-democracy. He has white nationalist overtones. He says he doesn't if they ask him, but really it's a lot of white nationalism and ethnocentrism, and not even that sense. He wants ethno states. And so Curtis Yarvin believes that he actually said this I'm paraphrasing. He said some people are better conditioned to be slaves than other people. This is who a lot of these tech billionaires are following. And they think the best world order is not a democracy with elected officials, but kind of this techocracy kind of thing where technology determines everything and you basically are run by a CEO. That's why you're seeing a lot of these like cities, these libertarian cities pop up in other countries. I think it was Costa Rica where one popped up or whatnot, where they've essentially they've said that we make our own laws and the laws are determined by the board of governors. It's really kind of a dark thing, but a lot of these guys follow anti-democratic guys like Curtis Yarvin. Peter Thiel loves him. Like he always quotes him and stuff. And they honestly believe that the end of days is coming. And a lot of times they're trying to accelerate towards that. It's accelerationist stuff. And so they're trying to find ways to throw gas on the fire because they want to be in charge of whatever comes next. And the unfortunate side of things is they don't really understand human nature in that regard. I call it we talk alpha males and stuff, and it's all bullshit. The person that came up with the concept of alpha males has discredited that and disavowed that a long time ago. But it's a lot of fake alpha males. They're alpha males because they have money and resources, and that's it. But they think that makes them tough and badasses and everything. And so when the end of days comes, they think when the apocalypse shows up, they're going to go down to their bunker and they're going to rule with an iron fist. And basically, when they have these tech conferences, they're talking about how they're going to keep the rest of us in line and these things. It's weird and dark, and it's not really connected with human nature because it's like, yeah, you're going to bring in Mr. Special Forces. He's going to kick your ass and then take over. What are you going to do to stop him? Your money doesn't mean anything. And I think a lot of tech billionaires, like for a lot of these guys, their money is on a computer screen somewhere. It's based on some computer screen somewhere. It's not cash. It's not cash or anything solid or liquid that they can exchange for goods and services. It's data on a screen. Well, if the deal goes down and there's no computer systems, there's no banks, how are you going to pay people to be loyal to you? And what does money mean at that point in time? The bartering system is going to look a lot different. It's going to be, do you have access to fresh gasoline, and can you refine gasoline? Can you refine oil? Can you grow food? Things along those lines. That's who's going to be in charge, not some technocrat. That's not some tech billionaire. And yeah, if Rosie O'Donnell and Oprah have their bunkers, I think one of the things is when you reach that level of mind warping kind of wealth, food and bullets equal safety. That's what it is. When you reach that level of mind numbing kind of wealth, I think you end up creating these weird fantasies in your head because you don't interact with normal people. Everybody you interact with is basically trying to get in your good graces so they can get some access to your money and power and resources. And you never have genuine interactions with anybody. And so it warps your perception of human nature. I earnestly believe that. And I think that's why once you get up to a certain economic strata in the country, there's a level of disconnect that happens. And I think we see it the way that Elon interacts with people online, the way that Zuckerberg interacts with other human beings. And I even say Oprah and Rosie O'Donnell to a degree. I don't know Rosie like that, but I've seen Oprah do some questionable things with her money. And I think there's a disconnect that happens when you get to that certain level of wealth where everybody wants to be your friend and everybody wants to kiss your ass, and you never have a genuine interaction with anybody ever, because everybody's more or less your employee. So I think that's why they're weird. Plus, I think Elon had some other stuff going on. I know Peter Thiel specifically. If you want to know, and like I said, you can Google me, fact check me on this one, y'all. Hey, for those that don't know, I am in a great mood. I am not any self-harming thing, so I'm just letting y'all know that before I say this. With Peter Thiel, he's interesting because Peter Thiel, when you look at his family history, his family traces back to Nazi Germany. And when after the war, when it became illegal to be a Nazi in Germany, instead of saying, okay, we can't be Nazis anymore, let's just adjust to our new life, they fled to find places where they could do Nazism. and they landed in South Africa. There was a little uh, enclave village, whatever, in South Africa, where Nazis could be open Nazis, and that's where he grew up. Take that for what you want. He's also the reason why JD Vance is a name that we know. He's JD Vance's single biggest funder. Peter Thiel is. He's one of the biggest contributors to the campaign of the current administration, and he's singularly responsible for JD Vance being where he is. So take that how you want it. And so you talk about somebody who grew up, yeah, they landed in Argentina too. That's why Argentina is so weird about, never ask what happened to all the black people in Argentina, because there used to be a lot of black people in Argentina and they ain't there no more. It was they wiped the population out through eugenics, and then being the place where all the Nazis landed. Brazil too, where a lot of these German escaped to. Yeah. But yeah, Peter Thiel is a frightening individual, and he's harvesting our data right now. He's probably, he probably has fillers out whenever somebody's talking about him on the internet. The entire Palantir thing. And the thing that's scary about it is, y'all, I hate to be a fear merchant, y'all. But we do need to talk about things that are real. If you want to talk about Skynet, or Brother Eye, if you're a DC fan, everybody knows what the Brother Eye satellite is. That's Palantir. Yeah, that's Palantir. Yeah, terrifying and disgusting. He got real scared. Yeah, don't laugh. It's true, and it's true. Like, but if you want to know, like, Brother Eye is Palantir, and basically Palantir, it was kind of born because PayPal developed all these different technologies that could kind of determine, more or less, they could determine fraud and predict fraud. It was predictive technology. And so they just said, what if we took this fraud prediction stuff and used it on aggregate data? And so a lot of police forces for a while in the 2000s were using it to basically predict who was criminal and where criminal activity was going to happen, and surge police forces towards that. And then they would use it to comb the database of criminals, of people that had been arrested and had police contact, and basically decide who to surveil based on who Palantir said was likely to reoffend. You can look, and it was in the NYPD. They used it in the LAPD. I think they used it in Florida too. This is all Palantir stuff. This is Peter Thiel stuff. And so when you look at who the people that are kind of running the cabal of billionaires that are running the country, you have Peter Thiel, who I've kind of talked to death, Larry Ellison. If you don't know what Oracle is, Oracle makes the databases that contain all the information. All the information. Your bank probably uses Oracle databases. Your social media provider, your job, hospitals, universities, anywhere where there's data to collect, there's probably Oracle system built in collecting that data. And so with Oracle, you have a giant, you have access to all these databases that collect all the data. And to see interviews with Larry Ellison, when they're interviewing him, he starts grinning like, yeah, when we can watch everybody's well behaved. We can just monitor everybody and see what everybody's up to. And then he tried to walk it back, like, if we're always watching the police and they can never do anything wrong, which is bullshit. It's not real. But he is obsessed with collecting data on everybody and knowing everything about what everybody's doing at the same time. And so you have this massive database company. And Oracle, Larry Ellison also essentially owns TikTok in the US. They essentially own TikTok in the US, and his son actually is the head of Paramount. So they have their hands in a lot of stuff. So you have Palantir, which can comb through a lot of aggregate data and make predictions like that. You have Oracle, whose job it is to create databases that harvest all the data. And so you take Palantir and Oracle and combine them, and you have what we're living in right now. That's what we're experiencing. That's the world we're living in right now. What are you gonna do with it? I mean, I could tell you the information. There's nothing you can really do with it except work within that knowledge. There's no way that you're going to take yourself off the grid of Palantir or, you know, you're going to you're going to extract all your data from Oracle. There's no way you can do it. If you've done anything that requires you any kind of data entry, Oracle has your information. It's an Oracle system. Now, I'm not saying that all Oracle's databases are connected to their main server, but there's backdoor access. I don't believe for a second that they can't access the systems they create. They have to be able to do it because that's how they lock people in. That's how they lock these corporations into using Oracle databases, even though they're not the best database systems providers to use. You just get grandfathered in. But the thing that's scary is how many different things that we use that are dependent on database systems by Oracle. I think Spotify has to use it, and anything that organizes anything is probably built on an Oracle system. Plus, CIA uses Oracle. That's where he makes a lot of his real money. So, the Ellisons, Peter Thiel, of course, Elon, Mark Zuckerberg, all these guys have unlimited access to our data, and there's not really anything you can do about it. What are you gonna do? So they're planning for doomsday, and we are their enemy as far as they're concerned. We're their enemy in labor force as far as they're concerned. They're about to. I mean, they're in for a rude awakening if they think that they're going to be able to control people because they have a bunker. Like, it's not going to work like that. Well, it is what it is. All right, let's see where we're at here. Oh, so this kind of ties in to what I wanted to talk about next. So one of the things that we need to discuss is conspiracy theories, because I've just ran down a bunch of stuff that is not a conspiracy theory. Like, all this stuff is verifiable. I'm actually a person that tries to debunk conspiracy theories wherever I encounter them. Okay. And there's a standard that you can apply to conspiracy theories to kind of validate what they if they're true or not. And I want you guys to kind of take this with you. If you're encountering somebody who's in the grips of a conspiracy theory, the thing you ask them is, if I was able to prove that everything that you believe about this conspiracy is false beyond a shadow of a doubt, this conspiracy that you believe in, if I am able to physically prove that this thing that you believe in is unequivocally, unquestionably false, are you going to be relieved or are you going to be disappointed? If you're disappointed that I disproved your conspiracy theory, that means you're too invested in the conspiracy side of things. If you're relieved, then you're not in the grips of a massive conspiracy theory. You're thinking like, this is a threat. It's regular threat detection. A lot of times conspiracy theories come to the fact that intelligence is kind of how we measure intelligence is based on our ability to recognize patterns. And for a lot of people, in their idle mind, their pattern recognition systems go kind of haywire. And so they start connecting dots and trying to connect dots in the noise and the static and make shapes out of it. And so I think a lot of times we end up being harmed by conspiracy theories because here's the thing. Some of the stuff that's happening that you think you need secret societies and all this other, it's happening right in front of our faces. The entire Epstein thing, that didn't take a secret society. That just took a guy who was connected to a bunch of intelligence agencies and had a bunch of blackmail material on people. That's all it took. You didn't require no secret cabal of elites or anything that were working in the shadows. They were doing it with the full knowledge of a lot of people. You didn't require the secret society to make that thing work. Okay. And so let me ask you a question. Do you believe chemtrails are real? This is a general question. And if chemtrails are real, what am I supposed to do about it? Okay, let's go down the rabbit hole. Yeah, we could talk about it. Um, I think aliens are probably, I don't know, I think they may be real. I mean, it sounds like that's what a lot of experts are saying, that there's probably something out there. I do believe, and I saw something where basically they said it's either our part of the Milky Way galaxy, our solar system specifically, is kind of in a cosmic void where we're just in this big, huge, empty space and nobody knows why it's a void. And so it would make it very difficult for any alien to get close to us because we're actually not really close to anybody. We're just in this empty space in the middle of our in the arm of our galaxy. So I do think there are probably aliens somewhere. Well, I mean, what's that do right now for me? Um, I believe that exhaust is just exhaust. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I know people that are 100% invested in the chemtrails thing, and they get online and they'll post pictures of a plane flying over and say they're doing it to us right now. And my question for them is, okay, so what do you want me to do with that information? What am I supposed to do? And why? What's the point? It kind of goes into um the flat earth kind of thing. Like, so you're telling me that, and I got a couple of questions, so I'm gonna get to you guys as I come across. Um, you know what sucks? Yeah, I believe we're not alone. I believe that there's probably something out there too. An emotional salary of how employers can pay you in feelings and a living wage, and grocery stores don't accept feelings as payment. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I believe that they don't want happy employees. I think that um you have different tiers of management. So I'm gonna jump to that. Hold on once, hold that thought real quick. Um, because we were talking about the chemtrail stuff, um, and the flat earth stuff. The flat earth theory, the question I always ask flat earthers is this: why? The government's, so you're telling me the government's invested trillions of dollars at this point into um convincing the world, convincing everybody that the earth is round. And they've done it for what reason? Because the scholastic globe manufacturers have some leverage on the why? What is the purpose of convincing everybody the earth is flat? Why would they do that? Who benefits from it? You don't have an action like that unless somebody actually directly benefits from it. And I think that does lead to the next question. Um, I think that there's different layers to this. I think as you move up management, um, I think the people, like the direct managers, they actually do want a workforce that is satisfied and happy because they actually produce better results. They make your life easier as a manager. As you start getting further and further up the chain and further disconnected from the front line, I think people just get indifferent and they start viewing their employee roster as numbers on a chalkboard somewhere or on a whiteboard somewhere. You know, stats on a sheet. I don't think that they are saying they want unhappy workers. I just think they don't care. I think they're indifferent. I think that's what happens when you get to a certain level of wealth, is you just become indifferent to other people, which will make more of a profit. I think that enshittification is real. I do believe that planned obsolescence is a thing that they've built into a lot of systems so that we have to consume more and more and more. Um, I don't think that this necessarily being unhappy. I do think for some people, when you get a level of disconnected, they think they see money as the only motivator in the world that matters to the people because that's what matters to them. And then they lose sight of things that actually motivate human beings. And so I do think as you start moving up the ladder, there's a layer of disconnect between frontline workers and regular people. Yeah. All I want is my basic needs met. And I think For some people, they perceive that as a threat. We were just talking about it. And me and Bonnie were just talking about this, where um, these oligarchs, these corporate, the big players, the billionaires, the multi-billionaires, the people that the oligarch class. Um, I think that for them, they have this view in their mind. And so if you really want to understand CEO culture, and so I'm gonna give you a homework assignment. If you want to understand CEO culture, look up Jack Welch. He was the guy that a lot of these CEOs idolize and they copy what he did. And basically, what he did at GM was he took GM from a company that was really connected to the community, really provided for the needs of their employees, promoted from within, gave great benefits, and they would call themselves, for a lack of a better word, and they said it, they call themselves a welfare corporation, where they really were invested in the welfare of their workers. And so that was consistent raises, steady work, retirement benefits, all the things that build a strong community around a business. They saw that as true value, and that's how they define themselves in the world. Plus, innovation, coming up with innovative devices to save people time and money and stuff. They're really invested in being on the bleeding edge of home appliance technology. And then Jack Welch comes in, and he was famous for saying, if I could put this company on a barge, I would. And I would just go to wherever they would charge us the least amount of taxes. And the first thing he did when he came in, he started gutting employee benefits. He was the one that came up with the take your bottom 10% employees and fire them every year. He's the one that started taking research and development money and funneling it into stock buybacks and things. He's reason why companies don't innovate anymore. He was one of the first union busters. Yeah. And so he was the father that a lot of these guys cite. Like I said, Elon follows him. Bezos, that's who I forgot. Who's fallen off of mention. They all follow Jack Welch. And yes, while he was there, he made GE an absolute a sacrilegious amount of money. Like, he made so much money with GE, and it was at the expense of research and development. It was at the expense of his oldest employees' well-being. It was at the expense of the communities that the GE factories were located in. Like, he stripped it down, and he was really the father of shareholder capitalism, where where a CEO's job is to appease the shareholders as opposed to create a environment for his workers to thrive. So Jack Welch is the guy that if you want to know what modern CEO culture is, look up Jack Welch. And he's the reason why everything sucks. He's the reason why we have planned obsolescence right now. He's the reason why when I was a kid, we had a washer and dryer that was actually older. That, like, we had one of the earliest washer and dryers, and that thing worked from like the 60s and 70s. That model worked from the 70s. Like, I think that thing was built in like late 70s, early 80s, and that lasted me all the way through the 90s in high school. And the only maintenance that we needed was to change out belts and parts and everything. There's a reason why we don't have that anymore. There's a reason why when you used to buy a television, your television would last. You could pass your television down to your kids. It doesn't work like that anymore. There's a reason why you can't work on your own cars and stuff like that. It was that planned obsolescence thing, and they found out that was a good strategy to get people to consume more. What we need is more unions if we're ever going to get a fair wage. That's true. And there's also worry that if we don't find different energy sources, we're screwed. I think as soon as they find a way to make a huge profit off the next energy source that they find, as long as they can create disproportionate profit, if they can find a way to disproportionately make profit off of new energy sources, that's when we're going to start seeing new energy technology come out. When they find a way to 100% maximize the amount of money that they're getting off of us. I have a 30-year-old speed washing machine that still works. Right. It just speed queen washing machine that still works because they built it to last. They built it to their model was built on selling you replacement parts, not selling you new machines. Look at your phone right now. Why do we need to upgrade our phones every year? I literally just upgraded my phone. I had my last phone for almost 6 years. Why do I need a new phone? But the only reason I had to was to update it. Like right now, Microsoft is forcing a bunch of people to upgrade their computers because Windows 11 doesn't allow for this whatever chip. You have to have this special chip. And if you don't have this special chip, then Windows 11 can't do security, blah, 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 blah. Really, they're forcing you to take the laptop that has worked great for you. My video editing rig is a old gaming laptop that I turned into a video editing rig. It works. It's the best computer I've ever had. I can't upgrade it to Windows 11. I can brute force it, but it would be kind of this hackneyed kind of way. And they're forcing all these people to upgrade their Windows PCs because they saw that they get money off the licensing and stuff. And so the only way to get more money and extract more money out of Windows users is to force them to buy new computers. They're trying to mirror what what Macintosh or what Apple does, where you got to buy a new Mac every year. People feel like they have to buy a new Mac every single year when you don't. Like I've had that computer for almost 10 years now, and it still works. It's still my best editing rig. I've got bigger and more powerful computers. That's still my best, most reliable editing rig. Ask me for a new one and I don't. Yeah. If we don't focus on mankind overtly to the Stone Age, I think so. I think we're going to start seeing a transition to other things. One, we got to. I mean, and I don't know where your political leanings are. We got to. I mean, it's going to take a change of administration. Like right now, and that's kind of what I was talking about. I wanted to talk about earlier. We're dealing in the hard power side of things, and really being in line with the corporatists. I'm not saying the other side is not in the pocket of big corporations. They've already proven that they are. But I do think we'd be more amenable to alternate investing in alternate energy things once we have a change in administration. That's why it baffled me that Elon was so gung-ho about Trump when he made his fortune off of selling those carbon energy credit things, those carbon credit things. It was the biggest scam in the world. But he was, I mean, Tesla didn't make money selling cars. They made money selling carbon credits to other car companies. And so instantly that I knew that was a program that would be on the chopping block if we had another Trump presidency. And guess what happened? So now he has to pivot and find other ways to make money with this thing. I do think we're going to have to rotate people out. I think we're going to have to rotate out the current administration, and we may not survive that. That's the thing about electing a despot. Think about electing a autocrat. They don't leave easy. But we're gonna have to rotate out the current crop of politicians and rotate in some that are more in line with energy conservation. It takes $20 to make an iPhone that they sell to a sucker for thousands of dollars. So where's the disconnect? I think the reason why it costs so little is because we're benefiting from cheap labor over in China. In order to bring over the engineers and be able, because here's the whole thing, the supply chain is centered over in China right now. I know I'm sounding like a know-it-all, y'all. I'm really not trying to, but I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff. The supply chain is kind of situated over in China. That's where the global supply chain really is, especially when it comes to electronics. And in India and China, you could have somebody who has engineer level knowledge and pay them essentially pennies on the dollar, what you would have to pay an engineer in America. And so that's the reason why this technology is cheap, because the labor is cheap to build it. If we try to build iPhones over in America, you're looking at a $5,000 device once you factor in labor costs, and then making sure that the CEOs get their margins too, because they're always going to pass the cost on to consumers. That's just how it runs. And so, um, I think that we have this perfect, and it go all. I'm telling y'all, it does go back to Jack Welch. Like, if you want to track the current how corporations operate, this is the guy, y'all. He created this world where corporations invest very little in the products that they make. They're trying to squeeze every penny out of the consumer and every penny out of their workers. And that's the world they created. I have a theory about kids saying 67. Hit me with it. Hey, we'll see what that's about, bro. Let me see what that is. So what's a 1672? Where Netherlands was invaded by France. It could be. I think it's just one of those nonsense phrases that crossed over into the normal parlance. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just a way to kind of troll people. But I've asked my kids, and that's kind of where they're at with it. But we can roll with your theory too. So, yeah, but yeah, man, they want to sell. And here's the thing: a lot of those phones, like you talk about iPhones and stuff, those are Foxconn phones. They're made in the Foxconn factory over in China. They also make they make Android phones too. They all have the same internals and components. And most of like the sensors are made, the camera sensors are made by Sony, because that's who is the best at the camera sensor game right now. The only difference is they have hardwired the components in an iPhone so that it only works with Apple's proprietary software. That's why you can't replace the components in an iPhone by yourself. You can't repair. You can repair your MacBook if you don't have the technical knowledge, but you can't make the damn thing work because the components are hard coded, and the only people that have the code to unlock that computer for new components is going to be the people at the Apple store. That's how they get you. I fixed phones. I've taken phones apart and put them back together and stuff. Basically, the people in power were selling resources while people starved. Yeah. That's not sustainable. And I think there's a weird part of human greed that convinces people that is not gonna, like, that the gravy train won't run out. But I also think that there's a layer where you have people that have so many resources, they have so much money, they'll never run out of money ever, that it makes it harder and harder to punish them. Like, it's hard to punish Elon by boycotting his companies, bro. He's never going to be broke. And since his valuations are just based on smoke and mirrors anyway, like, there's no way to, like, we could, like, he saw a huge drop in Tesla sales, and he's still the richest man in the world. Tesla's valuation doesn't make any logical sense based on the fact that they're a car manufacturer. They don't sell enough cars to justify their valuation. They don't even sell enough of those carbon credit bullshit things to other car companies to justify their current valuation. It's just all vibes. All vibes. And so they form, that might solve some problems. You know what? That might solve some problems. If there's a threat that if there's an actual threat that listen. If there is an actual threat that the public would uprise and eat the people in charge who are screwing everybody over, it would actually hasten their doomsday bunkers thing, because I think you might have missed it earlier. We're talking about how many of these billionaires have doomsday bunkers, and when they get together at these tech conferences, when you think they're talking about how they're going to use technology to improve the world, all they're doing is ruminating about how their doomsday, but what their doomsday bunker works like, and how they're going to bring in former military people to provide security for them in their doomsday bunker. Not understanding the fact that once this door is closed, they're at the mercy of this military person that they brought in to provide security for their doomsday bunker. But that's all they talk about when they get together. I think the threat of eating people may change the way that they view things. I mean, I know when Elon thought with the CEO, the dude that shot the CEO guy or whatever, Elon was starting to use his son as a human shield, which was really gross, but that's what he was doing. Like, he would always, whenever he's out in public, he's holding his son in front of him and stuff like that. If he was in like Iran or one of these countries that we're mad at, we would call him a coward for using his child as a human shield. But since he is the de facto ruler of America, it's cool. I think it's time to pirate. Listen, when nothing is owned, piracy, like you can't own a video game, you can't own any media or anything. You know, if you buy a piece of digital media, they can take it back. You're rationalizing and justifying piracy. If people can't, if a game that you own can no longer be used because of some third-party software thing that you've arbitrarily slapped down, you're basically removing people's ownership rights to stuff. Okay, and so here's the thing. So in modern corporate culture, innovations don't make money. Look at it like this. Look up the Juicero. Let's talk about it real quick. And I'm really reluctant to pop up other things, because if I pop it up, if I freeze, understand that I'm working in my browser. Okay, so I'm just giving y'all the heads up. Okay, but there's a Juicero. Okay, and so Juicero was this Wi-Fi enabled juicer. It ran for about $700. Okay, and basically, let me see if I can find a good image of it. Basically, the Juicero was a high-end juicer that they got people to pay for, and then you also had to pay for a subscription. So you couldn't use your own juice. Like, God forbid, why would you want to use your own juice? And so you would pay for the Juicero. Here's the image here, y'all. I'm putting it up on the Summer Jam screen. Hold on 1 second. So the Juicero was this $700 juicer that was Wi-Fi enabled. And then you would pay for a subscription, and they would deliver these bags of juices like $150 a month, and you get bags of juices for the month or whatnot. And I don't know if it was New York Times article or New York Times Online or whatever. They were reviewing the Juicero, and the person reviewed it, took one of those bags, this bag that you see in the Juicero, and they took it and squeezed it in. They took the bag and squeezed it into a glass with their hand. Foregoing the use of the Juicero, they got a glass of juice just by squeezing the bag with their hand. Completely destroyed their company. CEOs invested billions into this company. They dumped ungodly amounts of money into this company to bring this product to market, because they thought that they could bullshit the planet into buying a $700 juicer that doesn't really juice anything. It just squeezes bags of juice into cups. That's corporate culture in this country. It's wasteful. It doesn't make any sense. It's really not about innovation or anything. It's about how to monetize our existence and monetize every aspect of what we do. And that's what it is. It was, and I think somewhere along the line, somebody said, you could just defeat this, but there's no way that they had this room full of high-level executives, and somebody said, can't they just squeeze the bag? Like, nobody asked that. I think that conversation probably did happen, but they're trying to see how many they could get to sign up so they can be on the bleeding edge of tech. They're trying to see how many people they could sucker into this subscription thing. But yeah, corporate, the CEO, the corporate, the tech world right now is not necessarily innovating. They're about iterating and finding ways to monetize daily transactions. Juicero, look it up. It's crazy. It's stupid. Y'all could have given that money to school and paid all of their school lunches for the next decade with the money that you put into this stupid thing. But I digress. All right, so I'm catching up, so stay with me. Like releasing the phone next year, that's one thing. And another thing after that. The other real game is how Apple will take away features and then say you got to buy a dongle or some other third-party accessory for the feature that they just stripped out of your phone. Or how they slowly cycle the battery down and the iPhone makes itself slower the longer you have it. It's arbitrary. It's already built in there. It doesn't have anything to do with your usage or anything. It slowly cycles itself down so that you eventually have to replace it because the phone's moving too slow and the battery doesn't hold a charge. Elon arbitrarily putting a limiter on how much charge your battery can have in your Tesla. And you have to pay for the special package to unlock full access to your battery. That's what corporate culture is. It's just monetizing shit. It's like it's finding ways to take existing technology and further make you pay for it after you've already paid for it. Playing obsolescence so they can keep milking. That's exactly what it is. That's what my issue with StreamYard is right now. Like I've been using StreamYard, like the platform I'm using right now to stream. I've been using this since pandemic. I've been using this since the pandemic. And they have been stripping features and raising the price to the point where I'm looking at other alternatives because I mean, right now it's the best at what it is. It's the best at what I need it for, but they're making it very difficult for me wanting to stay a customer. And they got me hooked in by having a superior product. And now they're just making it worse and making me pay more for it. That's why I don't recommend. I used to recommend it to my clients and stuff. I don't recommend this thing anymore. It's good for what it is. And if you're looking to get started streaming and you want to professionalize a little bit, it's fine. But once you start doing like real work, it gets really expensive really fast. I think someone needs to send a letter to the Amish that explains they're putting companies in charge. More surveillance and hope. Yeah. Somebody got to let them know. I think that they've removed themselves enough from the grid where they're going to be all right. I think the people that are actually kind of disconnected from the grid or sphere are going to be all right. It's kind of like this. So, and this is kind of a American history for you guys that don't know. And it's kind of a Black history thing. So please stay tuned. During the Depression, since segregation was the way it was, a lot of Black folks were not allowed access to banks during the Depression. And what do you think happened when the banks collapsed? Since we weren't allowed access to the banks, we had cash in our houses. We had to stockpile our own money and create our own informal lending systems. A lot of immigrant communities nowadays is called, it's not new, but it's called SUSU. And a lot of migrant communities use it where it's an informal community lending program where, you come over as a new family, you get the SUSU. That SUSU allows you to start a business or go to school or something, and your job is to pay it back to the collective so the next person can take benefit of it. That's why you see a lot of immigrants are able to get themselves established and get themselves on their feet. We make fun for a long time Chinese restaurants. So that was the pathway for them to become, they would generate this cash generating machine and then pass it off to somebody else to get themselves established. It was an informal lending community. And it was born because of people that were pushed out of the system. They became independent of it. And so even talking to great grandparents and stuff, they weren't suffering the same way during the Depression. Times were still hard, but since they didn't lose their money because of bank runs or anything, because they weren't allowed, Black people were unbanked. They weren't allowed to participate in banks. When the economic collapse happened during the Depression, they had money. And a lot of other communities did not. And it was all due to racism and discrimination. And the way that they ended up getting Black people back into it was they it took jobs going away and economic collapses and everything, and jobs in the sectors that were overrepresented by Black folks, and then they kind of trapped them back into the banking system slowly but surely. through cheap loans and everything. It made it less easy to stockpile cash and save those things. And you had to turn to the bank because, you got laid off and when the next job was coming from. But for a long time, that was, Depression era, like they couldn't control that population of people because, they were the ones with the cash. And the rest of society was struggling because all their money got stolen by the bankers and the stock market collapsed. All right, I'm catching up on the comments, y'all. Fritz that starts feeding you ads you could pay. Yeah, I mean, they're disconnecting you from using your money. And I think that's one of the more insidious things that's happening. They disconnect us from actually physically using our money and put it on a card or put it on an account that you never have any connection to. There are plenty of times where I've blown through an account that I thought had more money in it than it actually did, just because I wasn't connected to the process of actually spending the money. Hello, how's it going? Yeah, so yeah, the juice arrow was rich people's nonsense, bro. Monty. It was complete and utter rich people's bullshit. And part of me wants to feel bad for him. The other part is kind of I find it a little bit humorous that somebody spent $700 on a juicer that just took. It didn't even juice real fruit. It just took bags and squeezed them. I saw that machine. It was the biggest ripoff. And that's what I'm saying. If you had the money to spend on it, more power to you. It's kind of like, I know Peloton made a fortune by selling bikes that have television monitors in them. And we all have smart TVs in our house. You can just get on your bike and turn it on your smart TV. But, and that's why I tell Peloton got in trouble. Like, eventually people figure it out, like, I don't really need these two things. I can buy the fries and the drink individually and it costs me less. It was the biggest ripoff and it was full of mold. I didn't know it was full of mold. Really? People were poisoning themselves with mold. Interesting. Commodify. That's the word. They didn't care. That sounds like communism to me. The battery thing, you need to research more. I can look it up. I'm not the expert on that. Okay. So I've talked to people who do this, like who do the smartphone repair thing for a living. And so that's where I got that from, where they say they do it for battery health, but it's not 100% the way it's phrased. I could be wrong. I'm not the expert on it. I've repaired other people's phones. I've repaired my own phones, and I'll talk to people who do it for a living. And from hearing them, the battery health thing is kind of a catch-22. It's kind of bogus because they say they wind it down for battery health, but really it's a faster way for you to buy a new phone because you can't replace the battery in your phone without replacing the phone. They made it so that you have to have one you can't have one without the other. And so I could be wrong. I'll take the feedback on it, but that's coming from somebody. That's information. That's an opinion I've gotten from somebody else who does that for a living. Microtransactions. Yeah, those are real things. And this is the reason why your games aren't completed when they release them. You always have to have updates and upgrades, and they'll release unfinished games and then patch them later on, knowing full well. Back in the days, if your game had a bug in it, you just had a bug in your game. Battletoads had a game-ending bug, and that's just how that damn thing shipped. And there was nothing you could do about it. Yep, the Amish do that with their health insurance. They don't pay the English. I could see that. There's a car company that try to put heated seats behind the wall. I've seen them try to put heated seats behind the paywall. I've seen them actually, specifically, like I said, Tesla did it with their mileage and stuff. How the range of their cars, you have to unlock that by paying up for it. It's really gross. It's insidious. The seats were already set up to do it, so just so they could soak their customers. And the thing is, if you go around the system, they probably try to void your warranty, so they can punish you for it. It's all subscription models. And here's the thing. I've used subscription models in businesses because that's just how people transact. I've tried to sell one-off products and say, this is your final product, or this is your final price for the service. And people are like, well, can you just put it on the thing so I don't have to think about it? I don't have to pay it every month. It just comes out of my account. And that's where some of the business ventures I started with subscription models. I always try to make it super plain in every transaction interaction. Like if you want to cancel, click this thing to cancel it. And I try to give the power back to the customers. But now we've conditioned an entire group of consumers to opt for subscriptions and everything. This is why they don't sell condos anymore. That's why they don't sell condos, about renting luxury apartments and renting and charging property management fees. That is true. And I always had, like, when we were looking for a house, we were considering a condominium. And I'm like, well, I mean, we could get a house. Now I'm old enough and I'm privileged enough to be old enough to have a housing market that wasn't cratering. We caught it in between cratering. And so we were able to get in the house. But that was one of the options, was a condominium. And we're like, I like having a backyard, and you don't get a lot for a condominium. We can get more in a house. But yeah, now they're renting out luxury apartments. You know, um, why have permanent neighborhoods when people can just rent and you just become a population of renters? Same thing with cars. Leasing cars. And some people will tell you it's the more effective option. For me, I've never liked the concept of leasing a car. I've always bought my cars. I always paid to own them. I think we need to go back to no quick. I do think flip phones, I think they have a utility. I did like the clamshell. We could just, and the most technology on that phone was you could play the game, you could play Snake on it, and that's it. Because right now I don't know if we all need supercomputers. I don't know if we all need to be walking around with supercomputers that log our every spare thought. I don't think we need that. I don't think that it serves us to have direct access to people's aborted thoughts, instantaneous. I don't think it serves us to be able to put our half thoughts out there like that. Like, I go through Twitter. I know it's X. Mama named it Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter. We were never meant to have this level of access to people's half thoughts. We were never meant to see some of the half completed thoughts that are posted on the internet. And people that have a perspective, but they're still kind of working on it. Like, sometimes those need to be inside thoughts until that thought is finished. And now with social media, you can blast it out to an audience of potential billions of people instantaneously, just like that. That's why we get so many bad takes. I've been a publisher for over 10 years. Using Publish for over 10 years, full of memories and projects. They shut it down completely with the files wholly accessible. That's enough to make you want to take to the streets. That's enough to make you want to take to the streets. Because you've been using it for so long, and they just said, you know what? Nah. All your work and memory is just gone. Enjoy. That's what I'm at. That's where I'm at with I have decades and decades of memories stored in my Google folder, my Google Photos thing. And that terrifies me to the point where I'm building a home server so I can have all my stuff at my own fingertips, so I don't have to rely on the cloud. So if Google one day says, you know what? No, I have access to my stuff. These people want control of the things that matter to you, and then they want you to pay for your access to them. Oh, cars are scary. Yeah, cars are scary now. See, I can basically hack most cars. They can hack most phones. Like, I know we have encryption standards or whatnot, but they can hack, like, they can access whatever they want to access. The thing to access your web camera on your phone or on your laptop is, like, that's easy if they want access to it. Hopefully I'm not interesting enough to them. That's like the stuff they admit now. Yeah, it's scary. The intelligent network is scary. That's why when I talk about Epstein. Epstein was a massive asset. People want to know why he had all these notes on people, was because that was his job, to collect blackmail material and intelligence on people. They propped him up there and gave him the latest technology. Why do you think he was always donating to MIT and stuff like that? They kept him on the bleeding edge with this kind of technology so that he could better track his targets and log everything they did with him. And it allowed him to live his sick, twisted, disgusting, perverted existence out in the open, and basically say he was going to check me. He had U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence, Soviet, Russian intelligence, Chinese intelligence, UK intelligence. All these intelligence agencies viewed him as an asset, and they provided him bleeding edge stuff. That's why he's such a big donor to MIT, because they are the ones that are mastering this stuff. The government relationship with colleges has always been that kind of way. You know, governments they don't necessarily do the research themselves. They use universities to fund a lot of research for projects. They pay the universities to do it. So that's why there was a connection. And so that's why he was able to forge that connection with MIT, because they allowed him to get the best surveillance technology available. My sister was in high school when smartphones were starting to be given to teenagers. When she got her first one, she broke it. Second one, she broke the third. Got the teenage social death where her parents gave her a flip phone instead. She freaked. That's all she get. She used it and then dropped it straight into a super hot oven, pulled it out. It worked with a small burn on the case. I just remember saying there, like, yeah, I deserve a flip phone. Here's the thing. I'm old enough where I remember my first smartphone, and I fought hard against getting a cell phone. And my first cell phone was actually an early smartphone, and it was too powerful for me to use. It was like one of those Microsoft it was one of those Microsoft mini PCs, micro PC kind of phones. They called it a PPC phone, and I could pretty much. It was like it has its own instance of Windows, and literally it was a lap. I mean, it was a laptop with a super small screen. And that phone is probably, now it's obsolete, but when I had it, man, it was too much phone for me. But now we're all walking around supercomputers. Like right now, I can adjust one of my lights. Like one of my lights, it can be adjusted by my phone. Like the light I'm using right now, I'm using my phone to adjust it. The realization that being too immature and growing, yeah. It's really interesting. I'm not mature enough for a lot. I'm in my 40s. I'm still not mature enough for the technology I have access to and some of the things I could do and some of the things that amaze me. Like my goal this year, I would love to get, I'm gonna, and this is supposed to be something I was going to announce, but I'm going to be having my own store, third place hangout for nerds. We're going to be doing retail. I'm going to be doing professional videography services, but also, it got board games. We're going to sell comic books. It's going to be really kind of a gathering place for nerds. And so that's going to be something I'm working on coming up. And I know that once I get my money coming in, the first thing I'm going to buy is a transforming Grimlock. Those walking, talking, transforming Grimlock from the Transformers. I'm not mature enough to have access to that kind of stuff, but that's one of the first things I'm getting. I know as soon as I get on, that's the first thing I'm getting. Is I'm gonna have Grimlock, and I think I'm probably gonna try to get a Megatron too. I'm not mature enough for this level of technology, but I'm gonna get it anything. I'm getting it anyway. Anyone with the phone and 3 brain cells knows they've always been in there. Yeah, I hope they're making a new documentary about the Unabomber, since apparently it was like Epstein customers he was hitting. Yeah, here's the thing about Epstein. It was the worst kept secret amongst the people that knew. And when we talk about power and influence in American society, he was the most powerful person in America for a long time, which is terrifying. And the fact that U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence, and UK intelligence were perfectly fine feeding children to monsters in order to get blackmail material on people is vile, and it's terrifying. But the fact he was able, when the district attorney of Florida was getting too close, he was able to essentially call and have a district attorney removed from a case because they're getting too close to him. That's a terrifying level of power that he probably shouldn't have. And it all came from the fact that he was connected with oligarchs, and he was connected with intelligence agencies. And they decided that the rest of us don't qualify for protection from him because we're not important enough to them. That's where we're at, y'all. That's the world we're kind of existing in. And I think it should be kind of a sobering reality to a lot of people that um our lives and our existence, they have a number on them, and they're not as important to people as Epstein's life was more important than the lives of all those children that he harmed, and that's how they viewed it, and it's very gross. Even the survivors, the people that survived him, he still he the government still viewed his information as more important than them. Oh yes, Mr. Maxwell, who mysteriously um decided to take a late night swim on his yacht, and he is one of the he was one of the shit lords in the UK. He is considered one of the worst people in the UK. He was, but he also was one of the main intelligence assets. If there was dirt to get, he had it on you. And then he tried to blackmail, I think, um he tried to either blackmail the UK government or the Israeli government to bail him out of some bad business transactions. And mysteriously, he went for an ill-advised late night swim off of his yacht. And then Ghislaine inherited all the money. I did a show about this a couple weeks ago. If you want to go back in the archives, I did an entire show about it because I'm a journalism major, and that's kind of what I do in my spare time. And so it was me going through the parts of the Epstein files that I could verify. I had to pull myself away from it because it's too disgusting. Like, it was too much for me. I left working with abuse and neglect cases and kids in that it was like getting fully immersed back into it. It was horror. It was horrible stuff. Do you believe in the fact that Putin and the president Xi, leader of China, have organ harvesting longevity program that they're offering to the ultra rich? I don't doubt it. We're cattle to them. Um, it's always like, for me, I don't put anything past it. It's never as elaborate. It's never as sophisticated as we believe it is. And sometimes when it does get revealed, we're shocked about how unsophisticated the network is. But I don't doubt that there's organs harvesting. That's a big business. That's a big business. More than that, basically started the modern market of scientific journals. Oh, I'm gonna have to look that one up. He worked in World War II, later as a resistance fighter, and then joined the resistance. Uh-huh. I also know, here's one. So one of Epstein's mentors was one of the former heads of OSS, which is the precursor to the CIA. He mentored Jeffrey Epstein. He's the one who got him into society. Let me see. If my computer freezes, that means I'm in another browser. So just be Jeffrey, and I'm gonna have to get off of here pretty soon, guys. I love this conversation though. I didn't touch on anything that was that was in my script today. Jeffrey Epstein, mentor, OSS. Stephen Hoffenberg is what I'm coming up with. CEO president, Ponzi scheme, blah blah blah. That was also, but see, he wasn't the OSS guy, I don't think. He met through Epstein through a British defense contractor named Douglas Lease. I'm trying to find the guy from OSS, the precursor to the CIA, that also was one of his mentors. But yeah, Jeffrey Epstein's mentors had a odd habit of turning up dead. And one of the guys who got him into the financial game was found dead. Donald Barr. I think this is him. I think it was Donald Barr. Yeah, all right. So So, okay, the way he came into contact with Epstein, the head of OSS. Yep, the OSS guy. I'm looking him up here now. I think it's Donald Barr. And he's William Barr's dad, or wait a minute. Yeah, he's William Barr's dad, who was the attorney general when Epstein died. He was the one that put Epstein on, bro. Like he was the one that he was the one that connected him up. And so he served in OSS during World War II. And he was also a teacher at the same time. He's the headmaster of the Dalton School from 1964 to 1974. Towards the end of the tenure of his headmaster, he hired college dropout Jeffrey Epstein. And so the Barr family goes back with Jeffrey Epstein a long time. And so his son was in charge of the Justice Department, and the agency that had the most access to Jeffrey Epstein when he was in prison. William Barr. He was Trump's attorney general, if I'm not mistaken. And so he was the top cop, essentially. And he had access to that federal prison where Epstein was. And if anybody knew where the bodies were buried, it was William Barr. His daddy was the one that initially put Epstein on and taught him spycraft. Huh. And I mentioned this. I think I mentioned it, but I didn't have the names. Yep, the Barr guy. It was Donald Barr, who is the father of William Barr, who was Trump's attorney general, who was the attorney general when Epstein died. I'm not making any definite conclusions. I'm also saying that I am perfectly happy in my life and I am not suicidal at all. I'm just saying that, yeah, that's the thing that exists out there. Make of it what you will. It's really weird that the son of the guy that taught Jeffrey Epstein spycraft was also the attorney general when he died and had unrivaled access to him as a prisoner while he is in federal prison, and was also the one responsible for investigating his death. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a journalism major. This is what I used to do. Like this is my goal when I was in college. I wanted to be a hip hop journalist, and so I had 4 years of journalism before I ended up having to drop out to actually work and support myself. And so I was about an elective or two shy of graduating with a dual major, a major in journalism and a minor in sociology. Then I had to go work and I had to come back and get my degree in something else. Yeah, it's complicated. If you haven't read it yet, you should read that magazine interview. I'm putting it on my agenda for next week because I'm going to be jumping back into the Epstein stuff and putting on my journalist brain because there's so many conspiracies out there that we need to talk about what's real. There was a lot of fervor when the Epstein files first dropped because they were using FBI tip line to implicate people, and FBI tip line stuff was not a way to implicate people because you could literally call in somebody you didn't like to the FBI tip line and say they're Epstein client, and your name would have showed up in the files. And so that's why I was inspired to jump on here and kind of debunk who was really doing what. And so I will circle back to it. I just needed emotional distance from it because it's traumatic reading how horrible, like as bad as you think it was, it's worse. There's stuff on here that I would not even mention on the live stream. It is so gross. It gives me nightmares. Okay, now you scare me. Listen, guys, it's not. I'm not trying to make a joke about it, but I am putting it out there because I'm touching on some stuff that it's connections that I don't think people really want to make or questions that they don't necessarily want asked. But yeah, guys, look out for me. Yeah, the fact that, like I said, it's really strange that William Barr is the son of the guy who taught Jeffrey Epstein spycraft, and he was also the attorney general when Epstein was in federal prison and had exclusive access to him, had unrivaled access to him. while he was in prison. And he is also the one responsible for investigating how he died. My MA is in forensic anthropology, and I research forensic corruption. Tell me more. Oh, no, I don't think he hung himself. I don't think he hung himself at all. A sociopath like that, in my mind, in my experience working with people that do that kind of, that have that level of opinion of themselves, they have such a high opinion, so they will preserve themselves at any and all costs. And I don't think he hung himself at all. I think Jeffrey Epstein hung himself the same way that the Black Ferguson activists were found shot and burned in a car, and they called it suicide. Look it up. I don't think he did that at all. I think that he was an asset that they thought could be dangerous to somebody, and they eliminated him, just like the people that preceded him, just like his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. I think that he was considered expendable at that point in time, and that's where he went. They're pumping all the bad information, big and small. Yeah, that was the intention. That's why they dropped it all at one time. Because they knew that people will go down chasing rabbit hole. It would go down all kinds of rabbit holes. I get it. So it can be like individuals, local level stuff doesn't go beyond that. Then up to more things like state-sponsored corruption. Yeah, they try to muddy the waters with the Epstein thing. That's why they dropped it all at one time, because they know that people don't parse data very well, especially when it comes to stuff like that. These are things that journalists and like detectives and people that have training go through. These are documents that they go through and kind of fact check and verify, and get primary sources on this and things along those lines. They dropped in the public sphere because they knew it would create a fervor, and they thought that that fervor would drown itself out. And all it did was increase people's desire to know, because actual journalists started pouring through it. If you want to know one of the best people to go through it, CoffeeZilla absolutely killed it when he started going through the Epstein files, bro. There's lots of other people that did it, but CoffeeZilla absolutely went nuts and really did some solid journalism on that. They weren't expecting journalists to actually get a hold of it and drown out the noise. I don't know who that is. If there's a car, it's never suicide anymore. I'm looking it up. He also has a report that says suicide and clear it was murder, assassination. That's basic corruption. All right, y'all. I do appreciate y'all tuning in. I have an entire outline that I didn't get to, but I love the conversation, and so I'll probably be popping on later on this week, because I got a couple of projects I want to announce, and I have more comic book related stuff. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of comic book stuff, but I'm going to be talking about that. I'll be talking about more about my journey into the Dark Corner, or not Dark Corner universe, the Dark Tower universe again. This is like my second or third time going through it, and this time I'm going through the ebooks instead of actually reading it. And the ebooks are offering a more of a superior they're a superior experience of the Dark Tower. In fact, Stephen King recommended using the ebooks because it actually tells the story a little bit better than the books. But I will be giving you an update. I'm still in the drawing of the 3, and so I'll kind of give you a status update of where I am. I'll be popping on a little bit later. Yeah, summarize what you wanted to say. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this. I got through 3 segments of an outline that has 9. So there's something that's not quite ready for TV yet, and so this actually helped me. It's not ready for broadcast yet, but it's a community I'm building, and it goes hand in hand with the brick and mortar that I'm going to actually have. That's going to be a hangout spot for nerds, and I'll be selling comic books and all kinds of other stuff in there. So there's going to be more announcements. It's something I'm kind of in the trenches with right now. So it actually serves me to actually have this conversation here instead of going through it today. So I will be popping on a little bit later on this week with another stream, y'all. I do appreciate y'all tuning in. Thanks. I'm always down to talk this kind of stuff, y'all. So stay tuned. And if you ever want to just sit down and nerd out about comic books or anything, hop on the live stream. We'll do the thing. This has been Blurting While Dad. I've been Brian. I'll talk to y'all later. Good night. Peace.